Cancel her booking. The words landed sharp and final, slicing through the polished quiet of the lobby as Ava Johnson stood at the front desk, her hand still resting on the handle of a worn carry-on that had traveled over 2,000 miles in the last 12 hours. The receptionist hesitated for half a second, then followed the manager's order, fingers moving quickly across the keyboard, the soft clicking echoing louder than it should have in the marble space. Ava watched the screen from where she stood, not close enough to read, but close enough to understand. Her name disappeared, just like that. Behind her, a couple stepped forward, laughing softly, their luggage pristine, their voices easy, and within seconds, the same room Ava had booked was reassigned, a key card sliding across the counter toward them with a practiced smile. The chandelier above cast a warm golden light across the lobby, reflecting off the polished floors and glass walls, but on Ava's skin, it felt cold, distant, unfamiliar. She inhaled slowly, steady, her eyes moving across the room. The velvet chairs she had once approved in a late-night design meeting. The front desk layout she had personally redesigned to feel welcoming. The scent in the air she had chosen from dozens of samples until it felt just right. And yet here she was, being looked at like she didn't belong. "I'm sorry," the manager added, though his tone carried no apology, only a rehearsed dismissal. "We're fully booked tonight." Ava tilted her head slightly, her expression calm, almost curious, as if she were studying something rather than reacting to it. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice low, even controlled. The manager's lips curved into a tight smile, the kind meant to end conversations, not continue them. "I'm absolutely sure." A faint ripple of attention moved through the lobby now, someone pausing mid-step, another guest glancing over, a phone subtly lifted, not yet recording, but ready. Ava didn't raise her voice, didn't argue, didn't step back. Instead, she let her fingers slide slowly from the suitcase handle, the small motion deliberate, grounding. She glanced once more at the front desk, at the polished nameplate, at the system she knew better than anyone standing there. Then she looked down at her watch. The second hand moved with quiet precision. Tick, tick, tick. She exhaled softly, almost to herself. "All right," she said. A pause, just long enough to be felt. "Let's give it a few minutes." The manager let out a short breath through his nose, amused, dismissive, already turning away as if the moment had ended. But Ava didn't move. She stood there, still as the marble beneath her feet, eyes steady, posture unshaken, as if she knew something the rest of the room didn't. And somewhere, deep within the building, something was about to shift. The air did not move, but something inside it tightened, like the entire lobby was holding a breath it did not realize it had taken. Ava Johnson remained exactly where she was, her shoulders relaxed, her gaze steady, as the soft hum of the air conditioning blended with the faint rolling of suitcase wheels across polished stone somewhere behind her. A faint scent of citrus and sandalwood drifted through the space, the signature fragrance she had approved after weeks of testing, meant to make guests feel calm, welcomed, important. Now it hovered around her like a quiet contradiction. At the front desk, the receptionist shifted slightly, glancing between the manager and Ava, uncertainty flickering across her face before she looked back down at the screen, pretending to focus on something that no longer mattered. The manager, Ethan Carter, adjusted his cufflinks, his posture straight, controlled, confident in the kind of authority that had never been questioned. He had already moved on in his mind. To him, this moment was over. Another minor inconvenience handled. Another guest dismissed. Ava's fingers brushed lightly against the edge of her suitcase again, not gripping it this time, just resting there, as if grounding herself in something real while everything else around her felt staged, artificial. Her eyes drifted once more across the lobby, slower now, more deliberate. The curved reception desk, the imported marble veined with soft gray, the lighting designed to mimic late afternoon sunlight regardless of the hour, the placement of every chair, every plant, every detail chosen to create a feeling that could not quite be named, but always felt intentional. She had walked this exact floor months ago in heels that echoed sharply with each step, surrounded by architects, designers, and executives who nodded at her every word. She remembered standing right where the manager stood now, pointing to the front desk, explaining how the space needed to feel open, not guarded. Inviting, not exclusive. She remembered saying that clearly. And now, watching it play out like this, she felt the quiet weight of irony settle in her chest. Not heavy, but present. A man near the seating area leaned slightly toward his companion, whispering something under his breath, his eyes flicking toward Ava and then away again, as if unsure whether he was witnessing something ordinary or something he would remember later. The faint glow of a phone screen appeared in someone's hand, angled just enough to capture without being obvious. Ava noticed it, but did not react. Her attention returned to her watch. The second hand continued its steady rhythm, each tick precise, unbothered by tension, unaffected by perception. 2 minutes had passed, then 3. Somewhere behind the desk, a computer emitted a soft notification sound. Then another. The receptionist frowned slightly, her fingers pausing mid-motion. A second monitor lit up with a small alert. Ethan barely glanced at it, dismissing it as routine, but the sound came again, sharper this time, followed by a low vibration from his own phone resting against the polished counter. He picked it up with mild irritation, his thumb swiping across the screen without urgency, his expression unchanged at first. Ava did not look at him. She did not need to. She simply stood there, still, composed, as the rhythm of the room began to shift in ways that were almost too subtle to notice, except for those paying very close attention. For minutes, the 5th minute arrived without announcement, but the shift was no longer subtle. Ethan's phone vibrated again, longer this time, followed by a second device lighting up behind the desk, then a third. The receptionist looked up, confusion breaking through her trained composure, her eyes darting between screens that now displayed alerts stacking one after another. A quiet chime echoed from the central system, then another, the rhythm irregular, insistent. Ethan exhaled sharply, irritation rising as he finally focused, his thumb scrolling through messages that seemed to multiply faster than he could read them. His posture straightened, not with confidence this time, but with something tighter, more controlled. "What is going on?" he muttered, half to himself, half to no one in particular. Ava did not answer. She had not moved more than an inch. The light above her caught the edge of her cheekbone, steady, unshaken, her expression unreadable but calm, as if she had already seen this moment play out long before it arrived. Across the lobby, the low murmur of voices grew slightly louder, curiosity spreading like a ripple across still water. Someone shifted closer. Another phone lifted, no longer subtle now. Ethan tapped his screen again, faster, his jaw tightening as he opened a message marked urgent. Then another, each one carrying the same tone, the same question, the same demand for immediate response. His eyes flicked briefly to the system monitor in front of him, and this time he did not look away. The main dashboard had changed. A new header line blinked at the top, bold, unmistakable, overriding everything beneath it. He leaned in closer, as if proximity might change what he was seeing, his fingers hovering above the keyboard without pressing a single key. The receptionist swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sir, the system, it is refreshing everything." The words hung there, fragile, uncertain. Ava's gaze shifted, not to the screen, but to Ethan himself. Watching the moment, recognition began to form, slow and unwelcome. 6 minutes. The air felt different now, heavier, charged with something no one had named yet. Ethan's phone rang. Not a message this time. A direct call. He hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering, his voice controlled but edged. "This is Ethan Carter." He listened, and as he listened, the color in his face changed, not dramatically, but enough. His shoulders, once squared with authority, lowered just slightly. His eyes flicked toward Ava again, this time not dismissing her, not overlooking her, but actually seeing her, as if for the first time. "Yes," he said slowly into the phone. "She is here." A pause, longer this time. The silence stretched, filled only by the faint hum of electronics and the distant sound of a suitcase while rolling somewhere far behind them. "I understand," he added, quieter now. When he lowered the phone, his hand did not move right away. It stayed there, suspended near his chest, as if unsure what to do next. Ava glanced at her watch again. The second hand continued its steady path. 7 minutes. 8 minutes. The number settled into the space like a quiet verdict. Ethan's hand finally lowered from his chest, but the authority that once moved it was gone, replaced by something far less certain. The lobby no longer felt like his domain. The polished marble, the warm lighting, the carefully arranged furniture now seemed to belong to someone else entirely. And for the first time since Ava had walked in, he understood why. His eyes shifted toward the main system screen again, and this time he did not look away. The header remained, bold and undeniable, a single line that overrode every other function in the system, a line that carried a name he could no longer ignore. Ava Johnson, owner. The word did not flicker. It did not change. It simply stayed. The receptionist took a small step back, as if distance might help her process what she was seeing, her hands hovering uncertainly above the keyboard that no longer felt like it belonged to her. A faint murmur spread further through the lobby now, no longer subtle, no longer contained. People were watching openly. Phones were no longer hidden. The moment had shifted from curiosity to realization, and realization carried weight. Ethan turned slowly, his movements measured, almost careful, as if sudden motion might make everything worse. His gaze met Ava's again, but this time there was no dismissal in it, no assumption, no quiet superiority. Only recognition. And something else. Something closer to understanding. Ava stood exactly as she had before, her posture unchanged, her expression calm. But now the space around her felt different, as if the entire room had adjusted its gravity toward her presence. She did not step forward. She did not speak immediately. She let the silence do its work. The same silence that had once worked in his favor now pressed against him, heavy, undeniable. Somewhere behind the desk, a printer began to hum, spitting out a series of documents triggered by the system override, each page sliding out with mechanical precision, stacking neatly, as if following instructions written long before this moment. Ethan glanced toward the sound, then back at Ava, his breath slower now, controlled, but no longer confident. Ms. Johnson, he said, the name careful, deliberate, as if testing it in real time. The title felt different on his tongue. It carried weight he had not given it before. Ava tilted her head slightly, acknowledging the shift without reacting to it. The second hand on her watch moved again. One final tick. 9 minutes. She let her gaze move past him briefly, taking in the entire lobby once more, every detail she had once shaped, every decision now playing out in front of her exactly as designed, except for one critical flaw. She brought her eyes back to Ethan, steady, unhurried, and for the first time since she arrived, she spoke with quiet clarity. Now, she said, her voice calm, even, carrying through the space without force, we can start over. The silence after her words did not break. It deepened, settling into every corner of the lobby like a truth no one could step around. Ethan swallowed once, subtle but visible, his throat tightening as he tried to recalibrate everything he thought he understood just minutes ago. The authority he had worn so effortlessly now felt misplaced, like a jacket tailored for someone else. Behind him, the stack of printed pages continued to grow, each sheet sliding out with a soft mechanical rhythm, documenting actions already set in motion. Ava did not rush. She did not raise her voice. She simply shifted her weight slightly, a small movement that carried more control than any command he had given earlier. Her eyes moved from Ethan to the receptionist, then to the others behind the desk, each of them now standing a little straighter, a little quieter, as if waiting for something they could not yet name. The guests in the lobby no longer pretended not to watch. Conversations had stopped. Even the faint clinking of glass from the lounge area had faded, replaced by a stillness that felt intentional. Ava took a single step forward, her shoes making a soft, measured sound against the marble floor, the same floor she had once walked during inspections, when every detail had been under her direction. She rested her hand lightly on the edge of the counter, not claiming it, not needing to, just acknowledging it. Let us be clear, she said, her tone calm, precise, each word placed carefully. This space was designed to welcome, not to judge, not to exclude. No one interrupted. No one moved. Ethan's eyes dropped briefly to the counter, then lifted again, his posture no longer rigid but held together by effort alone. Ava's gaze lingered on him for a moment, not harsh, not cold, but steady enough to hold him in place. What happened here tonight, she continued, is not a mistake in the system. Her eyes flicked once toward the glowing monitor, then back. It is a reflection of choices. The word choices seemed to settle heavier than anything else she had said. The receptionist's hands lowered slowly from the keyboard, resting against the counter as if she no longer trusted them to act. Ava straightened slightly, her presence filling the space without force. "Every guest who walks through those doors deserves the same respect," she said. "No assumptions. No shortcuts. No exceptions." Ethan nodded once, almost instinctively, though no one had asked him to. The motion was small, but it carried something close to acknowledgement. Ava let a brief pause stretch between them, long enough for the weight of her words to settle, long enough for the room to understand that this moment was not about anger, but about something far more permanent. Then, with the same calm precision, she reached into her bag and placed a slim folder on the counter, the sound soft but final. "Effective immediately," she said, her voice unwavering. "We are making changes." The printer behind the desk stopped. The last page slid into place. And in that quiet, controlled stillness, the lobby no longer felt like a place of routine. It felt like a turning point. The word changes lingered in the air, not loud, not dramatic, but final in a way that could not be undone. Ava's hand rested lightly on the folder she had placed on the counter, her fingers still, her posture composed, as if she had already stepped beyond this moment while everyone else was just arriving in it. No one reached for the folder. No one spoke. The receptionist's eyes flicked toward it, then quickly away, as though even looking directly at it might carry consequences. Ethan remained where he stood, his shoulders no longer squared, his stance no longer anchored by certainty. He glanced once toward the staff behind him, searching for something familiar, some signal that could restore the balance he had lost, but all he found were lowered gazes and quiet stillness. Ava exhaled slowly, the breath measured, controlled, her eyes softening just slightly, not with sympathy, but with clarity. She shifted her focus past the desk, toward the lobby itself, toward the guests who had witnessed everything unfold in real time. The room felt different now. The warm lighting no longer masked tension. It revealed it. Every reflection on the marble floor seemed sharper, every shadow more defined. Ava took another step forward, not to close distance, but to center herself within the space she knew so well. "This is not about embarrassment," she said quietly, her voice carrying without force, reaching every corner of the room. "And it is not about punishment." The words landed gently, but they held. A few heads lifted slightly, drawn by the unexpected direction of her tone. Ethan looked at her again, confusion mixing with something else, something closer to realization. Ava's gaze remained steady, her presence grounded in something deeper than reaction. "It is about alignment," she continued. "What we say this place stands for, and what actually happens inside it." The silence that followed was no longer heavy. It was reflective. Somewhere near the seating area, a guest slowly lowered their phone, no longer recording, as if the moment had shifted from spectacle to something more personal. Ava let her hand lift from the folder, leaving it where it was, untouched, but undeniable. "People remember how they are treated," she said, "long after they forget the room, the view, or the price they paid." The receptionist's lips pressed together slightly, her posture adjusting as if those words had found their mark. Ethan's gaze dropped once more, not out of avoidance, but out of thought, the kind that arrives when there is no easy response left. Ava's eyes moved across the staff one last time, not lingering, not judging, simply acknowledging. Then she straightened, her shoulders settling into quiet certainty. "So we fix it," she said. No urgency, no raised voice, just direction. The air shifted again, subtle but real, like the moment just before something resets. And for the first time since she walked in, the lobby did not feel divided. It felt like it was waiting. The waiting did not stretch any longer. It settled, like a surface finally going still after a disturbance. Ava stood centered in that stillness, her presence no longer questioned, no longer interpreted, simply recognized. Ethan drew in a breath, deeper this time, as if preparing himself to step into something he could not reverse. His gaze moved once more to the folder resting on the counter, then slowly, deliberately, he reached for it. The motion was careful, almost respectful, his fingers no longer commanding, but asking permission from the moment itself. When he opened it, the pages inside were clean, structured, unmistakable. Names. Roles. Immediate actions. His own name near the top. Not bolded. Not emphasized. Just there, placed with the same calm precision Ava had carried since the beginning. His eyes paused on it longer than the others. Around him, the staff leaned in slightly, not close enough to read, but close enough to feel the shift. The receptionist's breath caught softly, her shoulders lifting and lowering in a quiet rhythm as she waited. Ava did not move to guide him. She did not explain. She allowed him to read, to understand, to arrive at the conclusion on his own terms. The power in the moment was not in what she said, but in what he saw. Ethan closed the folder halfway, then opened it again, as if hoping the contents might change. They did not. The printer behind him remained silent now, its job complete. The system screens glowed steadily, no longer flashing, no longer demanding attention. Everything had already been decided. Ethan lifted his eyes to Ava, and this time there was no distance left in the look. Only clarity. "You are restructuring the entire front of house," he said, his voice quieter than before, but steady enough to carry. Ava gave a small nod, not dramatic, not performative, simply confirming what was already in motion. "Effective immediately," she replied. The words were not sharp. They did not need to be. They landed with the weight of inevitability. Ethan inhaled again, slower, his shoulders adjusting as if he were letting something go piece by piece. "Including me," he added, not as a question, but as an understanding. Ava met his gaze, her expression unchanged, but her eyes steady enough to answer without elaboration. "Including anyone who no longer aligns with what this place stands for," she said. No anger. No hesitation. Just truth. The room absorbed it. The receptionist lowered her gaze, her fingers curling slightly against the edge of the counter. Another staff member shifted their stance, stepping back half an inch as if making space for something new. Ethan gave a single nod, more grounded this time, as though he had finally reached solid ground, even if it was not the ground he expected. He closed the folder fully and placed it back on the counter, not pushing it away, not holding on to it, just returning it to where it belonged. Ava watched the motion, then let her gaze move past him once more, across the lobby, across the people, across the space that now felt aligned again, not perfect, but honest. The moment did not explode. It did not demand reaction. It simply completed itself. And in that quiet completion, something more powerful than control took its place. Understanding. The air no longer carried tension, it carried consequence. Ava let the silence settle one last time before she moved again, her hand reaching for the folder with a calm that did not seek control, only completion. She did not open it this time. She did not need to. Everything inside it had already taken shape in the room. Her eyes moved across the staff once more, slower now, more human, as if she were seeing them beyond their roles, beyond the moment that had just defined them. The receptionist stood still, her posture uncertain but attentive, her expression no longer guarded, but open in a way that suggested she understood more than she could say. Ava held that look for a brief second, then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, not as approval, but as acknowledgement. Ethan noticed it. Everyone did. It was subtle, but it shifted something again. Ava turned slightly, angling her body toward the rest of the lobby, toward the guests who had watched everything unfold without stepping in, without needing to. "This place will not change because of one decision," she said, her voice even, carrying through the space without force. "It changes because of what we choose to repeat and what we refuse to allow again." The words were not directed at anyone specific, but they landed everywhere. A man near the seating area straightened in his chair. A woman who had been holding her phone lowered it completely, her grip loosening as if the need to capture the moment had passed. Ava continued, her tone steady, grounded. "Respect is not a policy. It is a practice." The sentence hung in the air, simple, clear, leaving no room for interpretation. Behind the desk, one of the staff members shifted forward slightly, as if ready to speak, then stopped, choosing instead to listen. Ava's gaze returned to Ethan, not to confront him, not to judge him, but to include him in what came next. "You understood something today," she said, her voice quieter now, but more focused. "That matters." Ethan held her gaze, his expression no longer defensive, no longer uncertain, but reflective in a way that had not been there before. He gave a small nod, slower this time, deliberate, as if the motion carried meaning he could not yet fully articulate. Ava let a brief pause follow, allowing the moment to breathe. Then she stepped back from the counter, creating space where there had once been tension. "We move forward from here," she said. No emphasis, no demand, just direction. The lighting above seemed warmer now, not because it had changed, but because the weight in the room had shifted. The marble floor reflected a steadier image. The system screens remained calm, no alerts, no interruptions. Ava adjusted the handle of her suitcase, not as someone leaving, but as someone preparing to stay on her own terms. The lobby did not return to normal. It became something else, something quieter, something more aware. And in that awareness, the moment did not end. It settled into memory, where it would continue to shape everything that followed. The moment did not end with a command, or a raised voice, or even a final decision spoken out loud. It ended with something quieter, something far more lasting. Ava adjusted her grip on the suitcase handle, the small click of the mechanism echoing softly against the marble as she pulled it upright beside her. The sound was simple, ordinary, but in the stillness of the lobby, it carried. No one stopped her. No one needed to. She was not leaving because she had to. She was moving because she chose to. Her steps were unhurried as she walked past the front desk, the same desk where minutes earlier she had been dismissed without a second thought. Now, every eye followed her, not out of curiosity, not out of doubt, but out of recognition. The receptionist straightened slightly as Ava passed, her shoulders no longer tense, her gaze steady, as if silently committing to something different. Ethan remained where he stood, his hands resting lightly against the edge of the counter, not gripping, not controlling, just present. As Ava moved by, he spoke, his voice low, measured, carrying a weight that had not been there before. "Ms. Johnson." She paused, just enough to acknowledge him, her head turning slightly, her expression calm. "I understand now," he said. The words were not elaborate. They did not need to be. Ava held his gaze for a brief moment, searching not for perfection, not for apology, but for sincerity. What she found was enough. She gave a small nod, not as approval, but as acceptance of the truth he had reached. Then she continued forward. The lobby seemed different as she crossed it, not because the design had changed, but because the meaning of it had. The lighting felt warmer. The space felt open in a way it had always been meant to be. At the far end, the elevator doors waited, polished steel reflecting her silhouette as she approached. For a second, her reflection looked back at her, steady, composed, unchanged by the moment, yet carrying it fully. She pressed the button. A soft chime answered. Behind her, the room did not return to noise. It remained quiet, not empty, but aware. The door slid open with a smooth, controlled motion. Ava stepped inside, turning once more, not to look back at what had happened, but to take in what remained. The people, the space, the shift. Then the doors closed gently, sealing the moment without sound. In the reflection of the brushed steel, her figure remained centered, grounded, moving upward without urgency. And outside, in the lobby she had built, the silence did not fade. It settled into something permanent, something that would be felt long after the night was over, long after the guests had checked out, long after the story had been told. Not loud, not dramatic, just undeniable.